Going live, and we're live. So, welcome back to another episode of Farmers in Finance. I am Rico. I am your host for today, and my co-host. It's in India, but somewhere trying to get to it. So, we're gonna start the show because today we have our first guest, and we are excited. I'm excited. Well, Gaurav is excited, but he's not anywhere to be found. But he'll jump on, and he hasn't let me know what's happening, where he's at. Another thing that I want to catch you guys on, like what happened this last week, we had a protest in Kelowna. It was organized by farmers because a few people are feeling a little bit of the squeeze that is happening throughout the farming community. And I wanted to bring it up first thing because, again, farmers go to my heart, and I stand with them because without farmers, there's no food, and with no food, there's no life. Again, what has evolved from the protest, nobody knows. It was just to raise awareness that our government needs to change a few policies, and I hope this gets the message out. And soon we'll know what's going to happen in the future. Then let's move on. Oh, laptop starting. Okay, yeah. Gaurav just sent me a message. His laptop is starting. Very good, very good. We'll have him soon on. For today's quote of the day, I picked Napoleon Hill because he's the author. For people that don't know, he's the author of Think and Grow Rich. And this is one of the books that has connected me to our guest today. And we share a lot of interest in that book and common things that come about. But the quote of the day is, when the usual path fails, persistence creates alternatives. What this is trying to do is trying to hook it back to the show. The show is about unconventional financing, and so when the bank says no, or the structure of things or the way we do things don't fit in that box, and we try to have our imagination creating solutions. And our next guest is a great person that creates great solutions and thinks outside of that box, thinks in the box, but also outside of that box. So it gives you a little bit of different perspectives. So I'll go ahead, since Gaurav is not here to let us know what's happening over on this side of the world. I want to introduce Christopher in a different way. You know, like a lot of people talk about, oh, you have achieved this and that, and titles and achievements. But I think the best way to introduce Chris is this way. I was at a rally at EXP Realty, and I just knew one person in that because I was just new to the business, and then I met this Chris through this John fellow, and he introduced us out. And so I was introduced to him, and right away, Chris started talking. He's very energetic. He's a very, very awesome person. And I was there at the event, and he's like, hey, do you want to go and see the speakers and everything? Oh, no, I'm just going to go around and take pictures and post them on Instagram. And I challenge you to that too. I think it's so much fun. And at the time, I didn't really know what that meant, like taking pictures and selfies with people. I was like, well, I thought I was here for the speakers. Anyways, but then we faded away. We exchanged numbers, but at the time, it wasn't like really a constructive meeting. And soon thereafter, about 6-7 months later, he invites me to, well, this same John fellow invites us to a mastermind. And then we started talking about the infinite banking and then 5 a.m. club. And I was like, what? Another person, another one that knows about this? This is awesome. And then we hit it off. He's a great guy and a great person to know. And he's a wealth of knowledge. So let me just introduce to you Christopher Albanese. Thank you for coming to the show.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad to be here. I mean, the first question I have for myself is, who likes coffee as much as I do? Like, I'm just gonna promote this little business, Sandrines in Kelowna. Like,
nice.
I can only high five myself, so I'm just gonna be like, I love coffee, so high fives. But the thing is what I love about events is to network. I love meeting people. I have a goal, and my goal is to shake as many human beings' hands as I possibly can. I mean, when you treat humans as your brothers and sisters, like I believe you should, it becomes a very easy event. You just go up and introduce yourself like you knew them forever. But I had the privilege of being asked to come to that EXP event, and I know most of the speakers very well, so I decided I'd go network the room like I usually do and see if I could touch every human being's hand there, and that's where Rico and I got to officially shake hands. Now, what I've challenged, and I just I do this every event. I take salespeople or anyone I'm trying to make uncomfortable, and I'll put them in uncomfortable positions. And so what I ask them to do is a challenge, a small, simple challenge, and that's to go around the room and get selfies with as many people as you can. And especially with salespeople, like, let's think about like a farmer's market. I would take people and go down to a farmer's market, and these are people trying to sell their products. Like they're entrepreneurs, they're business people. And if you can't get uncomfortable with uncomfortable people who are trying to sell you something back, by simply asking for a selfie, I don't know where else we would go. But yeah, so Rico, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then that's a great introduction, and I'm glad you put businesses out there, because that's all it's about, right? Like, it's just about knowing the right people and promoting businesses that make this place a better place. And I'm sure your coffee shop there is very happy to have you there. and then hopefully you're going to go and take some pictures there too as well. Okay, so today's mission is to introduce a little bit of obviously it's a huge topic, and I don't think we can cover it in one section, just like what Chris said to me at the beginning of the show. I don't know how you're going to feed it in. But I was like, okay, well, we'll try. Like the best options to have is to try, and there's no failure here. We're trying to educate and help out people, understanding a little bit more that there is problems, but there is more solutions to the different problems, right? And so I just want to open like a door. I love the movie in The Matrix where the key holder, and there's many doors that you can walk through. So let's just open this door, and it's called unconventional financing. And this we'll try to keep it to real estate. Obviously, I don't know if I mentioned, but Christopher is a real estate agent, and he's been a real estate agent for 25 years. And he's got a lot of information and a lot of experience in that field. And my first question is to you, Chris. What is unconventional financing in your own words?
Well, that's a good question to start off with, Rico. I mean, unconventional financing is just, in my opinion, it's a way of solving problems um, when people don't think they have solutions, right? So, um, the best way I can explain it is, when you're in school, you're being taught how to learn information, right? Reading, writing, mathematics, but you're not being taught how to learn, right? How to simply um, use the word learn. So it's a word that I teach quite often, the word learn, because within inside the word learn is the word earn. The more experience, money, knowledge you want to have, you have to always be learning. So the greatest way to help us keep learning, I feel one of them is reading, getting yourself into situations or experiences that you've never been in or involved in, and trying to find ways to solve those problems that have been solved already by somebody, but you haven't learned how to solve them. And so when you get around other entrepreneurs, business people, farmers, you'll find solutions that they're like, well, I found if you grew this vegetable with this flower, it has a tendency of doing this. Well, that's great. I didn't know that. And that's how we learn to solve problems.
Yeah, and that's well put. It's just, and again, this stems, and I want to get your opinion on this as well. This stems from knowing the right people. So it means like having the right network to connect to, and then, hey, I've heard this guy that he's done this and he has the solution. Like, for example, like how I got interested into knowing your presentation about unconventional financing. So it's not just having different solutions, because what we're trained with is when we come out of high school or when we come out of any institutions, we just know, okay, how do I get financing for, let's say, a car or my home? Oh, I just got to go to the bank and apply, right? But in this way, you're just opening a different door, right? Like, that's why we call it unconventional, but it shouldn't be called unconventional. It's just be another solution to a problem, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I also agree. I believe words are important, and unconventional is a catchy word, but you're right. Really, the word is problem solving, right? It's you could go back to the Colonel Sanders story of when he was trying to open his first KFC, right? He went to 100 banks getting no's until he got that one yes. And sometimes, having that conversation with the first bank leads you to the second, or having that conversation with the first person leads you to another. And that's where you discover or solve problems that you didn't know you could even solve.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a great example, because it's like it's saying he went to the same institutions that offers you loan, but then every experience changed this pitch, so to speak, right? Like he changed the way he said a few things and how he used his words. Well, I mean, we're assuming, but you're not going to go to the bank after bank with the same speech. You have to in a way kind of adapt the choice of words, that like what you're saying, right? Like you're not gonna keep everything the same.
Right. So Einstein said it best, right? It's trying to get a different result by doing the same thing over and over. You learn, right? We only learned how to crawl and then stand up and walk and then fall, and we're like, well, that doesn't feel great. So until you understand gravity and how that works, and you've learned that problem and you solved it, do you actually continuously walk? So yeah, solve problems.
Solve problems. I love it. I love it. So yes, okay, we got the word out of the way. It was just a catchy thing, just to get you guys to watch the show. But it's more like, let's solve problems together, right? So, having said that, how do you think unconventional financing, the word, how about how does solving problems in financing could actually apply to farmers or rural players, for so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if a farmer is trying to find a way to get financing for, um, you know, for his business of, whatever it is, is there a way to look at it from a perspective where you haven't thought of that solution, and who could you talk to? So, I gave an example to one of my daughters one time. I said, we need to talk about your budgeting because you're moving out on your own. And so I asked her, what's your highest expense going to be? And so she said, well, rent, Dad. I said, oh, okay, great. I said, and how many bedrooms do you need? And she said, well, just one. I said, no, you need 5. She said, why would I need 5 bedrooms? I said, well, here's the thing. If you could go ask someone to rent you their 5-bedroom property and you could rent out 4 of the bedrooms for the cost of that rent, how much would your rent be for that room? And she said, well, 0. I said, that's another way of looking at it, right? And I said, okay, well, if your budget is, your highest expense is renting, what's your next highest expense? And she said, well, food. I said, great. How are you going to go pay for that then? She said, well, I'll go get a job. I said, are you not learning anything? Like, am I not? I said, you're going to go rent a neighbor's house or keep asking a neighbor until they agree to rent you their 5-bedroom house, where you'll rent out all 5 bedrooms. And that 5th bedroom will pay for your food. So she's essentially found a way that she doesn't have to come up with the money through trading her time for money to pay for her expenses. Well, I mean, we could apply this theory in farming as well. It's like, and it's a concept that I'm sure has been going on for a long time. Again, sometimes we just get complacent with what we know, what's in front of us, and we can't see, I call it angles. We can't see the different perspective. But, sometimes looking at successful farmers to say, how did you do it? How did you get that financing? How did you get there? Right. And it usually comes back to an acronym, highly taught in a book by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad Poor Dad. And the acronym is OPM, other people's money. Right. So how can you leverage other people's money, time, energy, when it comes to farming, right? Because we know that we can seed a farm, land, seed the land, and we have to use, the energy of water, the energy of the sun, and other properties to grow food. But can we be more efficient so that it produces a higher crop, higher return? So we would look to someone who's already done it before us and said, what experiences did you learn from, and how can we grow that? So,
I was, as you were saying that about 5 bedrooms, I could just apply it to farming. Hey, about renting out a big field, divided into 5 plots, and then have those plots be planted by other farmers, and you either take a little bit of their income, or you go and market those products all in one go, so that you guys are sharing the benefit, and all of a sudden you're getting your plot for free, and then you're leveraging, right? So it can be just that story can just be applied to farming as well, like you said, right? And that's the beauty of what you mentioned, is about seeing things with a different perspective. So it's like change, again, going back to our quote of the day, right? Once you frustrated all the resources, and you have created these failures, you just have to be persistent, and then you will create an alternative to it, right? And so that's what this talk is about, not just talking to our friend here and our guest, but it's just about, like creating the mindset that, hey, there is a solution to this problem, whatever it is that you have now. If it's a business problem, or if it's a problem in your marriage, or a problem with your friend, it's like, well, if I think it out, because this is not the way I react to it, this is the way I do it, this is the way I was taught, but what if I thought differently, right? And another thing that comes in my mind is like how EXP is structured, right? They have structured the company for the realtors that are working in it to create this environment of collaboration, of networking, because it's like what Christopher said, it's like the network is what's going to give you a different perspective, right? And then it's like we find different solutions to our problems, right? And also he mentioned as well, like some other guy might have had the same problem that you had, and or maybe you're a Thomas Edison, maybe you're inventing the new light bulb and you have to fail 1,000 times, but whichever way, there's going to be a solution for you out there. So there is a solution whenever it comes to financing, whenever it comes to farming. There is solutions out there, just giving you a little bit of hope there and mindset. Anyways, let's go back to our questions. Can you walk us through one of the creative deals or structures that shows how this system works? I know you set it up like with a story with your daughter, but how does it work with the nuts and bolts? Like, say if I was to wanting to buy a farm, and I had this perfect field, flat land, good water, good exposure, how would I approach the sellers or the people that want to?
Yeah, great question. I used to run a fast food chain when I was a teenager, and I was trying to figure out what's the best way to make money. Like how is this franchise making money? And what I quickly learned by watching what other people do was they were just helping people, right? So the crew person was helping the customer on the front line, and the managers were helping the crew people love their job, so they came back and did a good job helping the people on the front line. So how I've been able to do creative financing was finding ways to help the other person. What is their need? What is their wants, their desires, right? And so if you're always looking for a win-win solution, if you're trying to find a way that helps them, so let's say they're just really struggling to get the right tools onto their farm, but you knew someone with the right tools. Is there a way to bring them all together where you could have part of that business together as the three of you? I know my very first real estate deal was a 61 unit apartment building, and I needed to raise a lot of money, and I didn't know anyone until I found, funny enough, a farmer who had sold his land and wanted to put his money to work. And and I offered him 10% on 600,000. So I said, you'll get $60,000 a year on your money. And one of the greatest lessons I learned from that experience was this. He said, Christopher, what's 100% of nothing? I said, well, nothing. And he said, what's 50% of something? Something. So I thought about it for a few seconds, not too long, shook his hand and said, I'll take 50% of something. And so that was one of the greatest lessons about partnership and creating something from nothing. I wouldn't have done probably more of the hundreds of deals I've done if I didn't understand what working with others, helping find a way to help others get what they need. And sometimes, in our real estate world, sometimes they're able to give me their properties, and me just covering their cost is helping, right? Where other people will say, well, you didn't give them anything. Well, foreclosure could have been their next option. And so their best option was not going into foreclosure. And so me helping them there was. So if I could say, the answer is find ways to help other people, and it always comes around. You're on mute, my friend.
Yeah, I know. I just got it. Yeah. So what you're saying is find out what that farmer problem is and why he's selling. So go in and first explore the problem. Don't have any expectation of what you're looking for. Try not to connect it to your goals, and just be clear and understanding and listening. Is that what you're saying then? That this is
right. What I said earlier was my favorite word is the word learn. And I said inside the word learn is the word earn, right? The more money, experience, knowledge you want, you have to keep learning. But inside the word earn is the word ear, right? We need to listen more than we speak. Ask a question. If I could help you, what would that look like? And that's it. And then I just listen, right? One mouth, two ears.
right. Well, I'm here. I'm all ears now. Okay, so pretty much is shut up, Rico, and let me do the show and speak. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, just ask questions, and when you don't feel it's a good question, ask a better one.
Yeah,
and just keep asking better questions.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so how do you prepare for just listening? Do you write your questions down? Do you have a script, or does it all come naturally flowing? How do you?
Yeah, that's. I mean, my wife calls me a professional bullshitter. And so what it is that I just ask questions of curiosity. It's like trying to be a child my whole life. It's like, I just want to discover. If it doesn't work, or I don't get the result that I want from that farmer A that I went to, but I learned something on the messaging of the questions, right? So I can go to farmer B and ask a better question to get a different result. Then I can't formulate thoughts I don't have, right? But I can ask questions and learn from them. So, I mean, I would, again, just go up to, in this scenario of farming, I would go up to a farmer and ask them again, questions about what they know about farming, what they do in farming, why they got into farming. And I'm pretty sure a farmer was passionate about what they do when they started, as we all do, right? We're passionate. And then we learn, or we get into complacency, where it either becomes too easy or we're not stretching ourselves to grow and learn in our abilities. In real estate, I learned quickly that there used to be where Farmer A would want to buy Farmer B's land, and Farmer B didn't want to sell to Farmer A. So they created assignments where I could say, I'm Joe Smith with and/or nominee, meaning you didn't know who was actually going to be nominated to buy it. But Farmer A didn't want to sell to Farmer B. So Joe Smith bought Farmer A's land and then nominated Farmer B to be the buyer. So someone came up with a way or a solution to achieve something when someone else didn't know how to get a job done. So that was probably another lesson where I learned on about how to use OPM or solving problems that I didn't even know existed, and then how to solve them. One of the things I teach in the mindset course I do is how to solve problems. And so I bring problems to bed. I create the thought that I want to solve. I go to sleep and I wake up with solutions. And what it is it's not that I'll get the actual solution. It'll be that it might lead me to say, you know what, if I talk to Ricardo, he might know someone that knows how to do that. And then that leads me to solving the problem. So what I'm saying is when we put energy to thought, some call it manifesting, the energy, the solutions will find you. But when you believe that you can't solve a problem, or I don't know if there is a solution, you're right as well, because you won't discover it. So.
Oh, I just went off. Okay. Yeah, that is so true. I mean, it's about mindset. It's about I've heard of that technique of going to bed with your problem in mind, and then let your creativity side, your dreaming side, to come out and say, hey, this is the solution in the morning. But yeah, I I did it once, and when I woke up, I actually found the solution for another problem that I had, but never for the one that I'm really focused on. Um, Maybe you can go in deep details. Like, do you do like an affirmation, or do you like write it down? How do you come up with this solution, or or the intention to find the solution? Because it's an intention, you know.
Yeah, I once learned about positive affirmations, right? So let's say, I want to be a farmer that successfully grows a certain type of crop. You can create that affirmation. But what I learned is that there's positive and negative energy to life and words. So if you didn't believe that you could be successful at it, it might actually be a negative affirmation eventually. Whereas if you changed your language and said, I am working on being a farmer that grows the best X type of crop, right? So I just always am working on being the best me, right? By learning, by experiencing, and by doing and making mistakes and growing from them. So I just use affirmation in a way where it is always positive, and same with my language of my words, is that I am working on being the best husband, the best father, the best that I can be. I'm not comparing myself to anyone. It's just I'm working on being the best me. And I apply that to everything in real estate, in life and business, and especially with my family.
Right. So when you wake up, you're like, okay, it's time to fulfill that question that I had. How do I be the best version of myself today? And then you also mentioned before, it's like when you go, it's you creating this experience. Like for example, like if I was to go to a farmer and ask them, so what's your problem, what's your solution, and everything like that, it's like you're going back to what Colonel Sanders did, that when he went to the bank. Probably the first time he learned a little bit about how the bank would like to receive the information. The first time he had an idea, he just wanted to say, hey, I'm looking for a loan. I got this great recipe. And then he figured, oh, maybe they didn't want to hear about my product. Maybe they wanted to fulfill, how do I satisfy the bank? Over time, he learned that maybe it was, how do I help the bank to give me a loan, because this is probably the best product. But they don't know about the product unless they try it, or unless I show them my business plan or something like that, right? So in the same sense, is about growing a fund of questions that you can have for your farmers out there that are looking into selling the land, and be like, hey, can the solutions fit us both? Can we come together with a partnership? Like, because at this point, it's like more like what you have in the mindset, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you have in your mindset is everyone is a partner. They just don't know it. And you're going to find out through asking them questions how they can be partner with you. Am I getting this right? Or?
Yeah. Let's use a scenario. So let's say that there's a retiring farmer. He wants out of the business, right?
Yeah.
But he wants so much money for his land, his machinery, his material, but you don't have it.
Well, he built a legacy. Yeah, he built a legacy. Sure. So
right, but you would love to take over that legacy, and let's just say, there's no children looking to take it over, so he's putting it up for sale, or they are putting up for sale. How could you help that farmer continue his legacy of what he built in exchange for what you're going to do? Right? So it's asking the questions that satisfy them. If I was able to give you 10% of what you're asking today, would you allow me to generate from the revenue payments for a period of time? Right? And that might be one solution. Maybe some say yes, maybe another farmer says no. But understanding what they need, if they're like, I just need X amount of dollars today because I'm going to be going off and enjoying retirement life in somewhere warmer or cooler, depending on where they're coming from. Can you satisfy that desire that they have? That's all you're doing. You're just solving problems. And so you got to find out what that problem is. They don't always, everyone doesn't need 100% of what they have. They need something to fulfill what their desire, dreams, goals are. Just got to find a way to meet those. And usually it's just finding other people that have those money financing tools that can put the two parties together, and you get a piece of it.
Right. Okay. So that's opening up a little bit more to our next question, because it's like, so is persistence something that you have to use when the common way or the banks are going to say no, when you're trying to let's call it a deal, but it's sort of like it's when you're bringing the solution together. Like, how does persistence fit in? Are you going to be, if they say, oh, I don't want to talk about this, like, how do you respond to somebody that is like objecting and saying, oh, I don't want to talk about this? no, this sounds too crazy, and I don't know, you're probing too much.
Yeah, I mean, so I ask salespeople all the time, or in this situation, have you ever received a no, right? And that's where you're asking about persistence. Like, salespeople tend to just keep asking and asking. They're trying to be persistent, and for lack of a better word, they're bullying their way into the to the yes. They're trying to get that yes. Whereas I say or teach is, how do you lead people to a yes? Right? How do you get it so that they say, I mean, that absolutely makes sense. Why would I ever say no to that? Right? So if you can lead people to a yes, and the question is how do you lead someone to a yes? And what I always say to that is this, is by solving the problems the way they receive the problem, so that they come up with the solution where they're like, that's a no-brainer. Yes, let's do that. Right? Because they're solving their problem. Nobody cares about what you want or they care about what they want or what they know. And so if you can help them solve that problem the way they receive it and execute it by saying, you know what, I could probably do 50% financing for you if you can go get 50% financing from someone else. And that's great. And if I came back and they said, they'll do 40%, would there be any way for you to maybe be able to do 60? No? Yes? Right? And so now you just have to go solve for 50%, not for 100%, or maybe 90%. But if you can continuously find ways to lead them to come up with the solution, so they solve our problem, which is, I want to work that land, I want to own that farm, I want that business, there will be a win-win. They'll give you the answer. You don't need to tell them.
Right. So that's another unconventional way to do it. Like what you described, the salesman and the fear that people have against the salesman, because they're always like, I don't know, back in the days, they used to teach you, lead the person to say 3 yeses, and then the next one is going to be a yes. All these different sales technique. But I mean, we want to be also respected and take pride on what we do. Obviously, we're all salespeople. In a sense, we're all salespeople. Grant Cardone did a book, sold or be sold. You're either selling or you're being sold something. So, and then it's an unfair maybe reality. Maybe it's a fair reality. It depends how you see it. I always start chatting with a great salesman, because I want to learn more on how did they learn their techniques, how their approach, and there's different ways that you can learn from them, and then it's like what Chris said, by listening to them, right, hearing what they are, and then you're creating a little bit of a different skill set, and that's what this talk is about. Like, just try to think outside of the box. It doesn't have to be salesy. We're not selling anything. We're trying to come up with a solution. And if you can kind of like chip down your goal, and if you get to 50%, you made 50% progress, right? Like, as your goal is 100%, but there's possibly other solution. How do you change it? So that brings me to my next question, Chris. So you're a connector, and definitely a great networking guy, and obviously you're setting up these masterminds that bring opportunities and bring more solutions. How do you see them fitting into a conversation that you have with a possible farmer or a real estate professional?
Well, I mean, the different masterminds I host is to get people thinking by asking good questions, better questions. And I mean, if I was in the farming business, I'd be surrounding myself with other farmers as well, and masterminding, coming up with like concepts, ideas. How do we, can we all be 10, 25% of something versus nothing? If we could all collaborate, OPM, other people's money and resources to acquire. I mean, it brings me back to, I was speaking at an engagement and I was talking to one of my co-speakers, and we were talking about going to the Calgary Stampede. And and he said he'd never owned a pair of cowboy boots. But so he set a budget in his head of $70 to go buy a pair of cowboy boots for this event, and he figured he wouldn't wear them ever again, so he wanted to keep a very low budget. And he asked me, he said, "Have you ever been to a department store where you're trying to buy, like some kind of clothes, and you walk in and the first thing beyond the pleasantries like hello, the question always is, can I help you?" And the first thing we do as human beings, because we're negative, or we're creatures of defense, we want to push back to protect ourselves. So we say, "No, I'm good, just browsing," right? And we go look around, and then we find the thing we're trying to find the thing we're looking for, and all of a sudden the salesperson's not even there.
It's gone.
Right? They're gone. Well, excuse me. My friend said he went into a boot store in Calgary, and the salesman, beyond the pleasantries, asked a very good question. And that's what I'm trying to teach is we sometimes just don't ask good questions. And he asked this question. He said, the question was, do you know how a good pair of cowboy boots fits? And he was qualifying without the buyer knowing, my friend. And he goes, "No." He's like, "What size of feet are you?" And so he went and grabbed a bunch of boots and said, "Try these on." And my friend tried on the boots, and he's like, "Oh my goodness, this is the most comfortable pair of footwear I've ever worn."
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, and the salesman, "Did you feel the click?" And he goes, "Yeah." It's like, "That's how you know it's a good pair of boots." He's like, "I'll take them." He gets up to the till. They're $700. Right? We buy on the wrong value. If we're buying on our perceived thoughts of like what something is that we may need versus what actually is good for us, right? You would find a way to get that product, even though it's $700. Can you find a way to get someone else to help you acquire that? So OPM, other people's money, or a mindset that I have, which is I don't believe in paying for things. So I trade a value or a service to get what I need. So if I needed the boots, could I get someone else to give me $700 in trade for some kind of service, because that boot store wants the $700. They don't want my service, maybe, only because they probably don't know it yet. But it's, can I trade that value or service in exchange for what I want?
Nice. Okay. That's how we tied it all together, right? So what I'm getting from this is like he uses his network to create solutions so that he can get that great pair of boots from the store. So he's like, how do I use my network, the people that I know, to believing that what I'm getting, the pair of boots, is going to benefit them too, in a sense. Same concept as, like renting a 5-bedroom house, which the cost there, when I thought about it a little bit, the more bedrooms you rent, the cost per bedroom lowers itself to the point that you can rent 4 bedrooms and have the 5th one free. So it's kind of like this solution that is brought upon about thinking, that's what the mastermind and the networking allows Chris to do, is to think and then ask the right questions in a sense, and then have the questions, have the solution connected to each other. And then again, like it's like creating this web sort of thing, right? Am I getting this right, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, think of it this way: if you know of someone that has a lot of something, I guarantee they have a lot of partners. You just don't know that behind the scenes, right? So,
Right.
That's where joint venture (JV), comes in. Where it's like, what is a JV? It's two common interests coming together for one goal or purpose. Well, you could look at like marriage, right? There's two common interests coming together for one goal or purpose. But we'll use marriage for an example at the moment, whereas I call it peaks and valleys, right? When you're on a peak, things are good. And when you go in a valley, things get tougher. And that's just seasons. That's just inevitable change. But what I know is this, is we don't get married in a valley. I hate you. Let's get married, right? We get married on peaks. I love you, right? And when you know what the goal or purpose of whatever you're doing, marriage, business, partner, everything that you're in joint venture, when you remember what the goal or purpose was, that's where you drive towards that tough season with your partners to achieve, right? You got into business, you got into farming to achieve something. There's seasons. Winter season comes all the time. Some of them tend to be longer than others.
Yeah.
It's how do we get through that? Is there a way we can build up our silos? Is there a way we can, sell some dirt? We just solve problems, right? Knowing that the seasons are coming, they always do, the valleys. And knowing how there's solutions to come through those will create those people that you find successful in life. And you're like, I want to be like that. I want to be like them. They've solved problems through those tough seasons. And so if you just haven't been through them and you don't know them, maybe that's the question you ask of someone, which is, hey, have you ever gone through a tough season, and what does that look like, and how did you solve it, and what are the solutions? Which is actually the question to life, right? It's how do I solve these solutions? Because inevitably we're all working towards the same end solution of life. But how do you enjoy the ride longer on the peak and less in the valley?
Oh, wow. You're asking me questions now? Awesome. Yes. I love it. I love that analogy. I love the way that was put and framed. And it's just like, it brings it back, and you brought it to the marriage, which is another type of unconventional business, so to speak. It's like you do start with your goal, right? And then you evaluate along life and what's missing and everything. But in the end, there's that dream, right? And no venture started with in a sort of a negative tone, right? Like it doesn't all finish, it doesn't all start in the valleys that Christopher is talking. So, and when it comes to business or farming too, like when I started, I didn't know anything, but I was so excited. I just wanted to grow food and go to the markets, and you get all these excitements, and you're in the peak, and that's where you're creative, like, and you will find solutions. There's nothing that can veer. And bringing it back to today's quote is like that persistence, because if you're so convinced that this is what you want, this is where you want to be, you are, the excitement, the energy that you put into it is just going to drive you, like through any valleys. Like a valley, right? Like I'm picturing like this motorcycle guy just giving it the maximum throttle, and then he goes to the peak, and then all the valleys are just down below, and he gets to another peak, right? So that's the kind of energy that you got to have, and I feel like there's a lot of people that motivate you, and I see this comes about too, like when you go to networking events where I met Chris, rallies, conferences, that energy that you pick up from there, just bring it back to your business, and then boom, you get launched. There is valleys out there. That there's no doubt. There's valleys and times where you feel like, oh my God, I'm not gonna make it, or doubts and stuff. But if you have the right energy, you can just be that motorcyclist. What's that guy called? That just takes the longest jumps. Evel Knievel.
Yeah, this reminds me quickly of a story where I was again at a speaking engagement, and another speaker, he had to go to Dubai, and he was speaking there, and he wanted to go do those sand dune buggy, crazy, so he called the company, and he wanted to know what their experience level was, right? So that he knew he was going to be safe. And the gentleman that answered the phone, he asked the question, how long have you been doing this? And he said, it's my first day, sir. He goes, what? Like, first day? I need someone with more experience. He said, well, let me explain. He said, do you remember when you started something, how excited you were, and you want to be the best farmer, you want to be the best, you just want to give, you're willing to put your head down and work hard, right? Well, that's how we treat our business. Is every day we treat it like it's our first day. So when I said it's my first day, it's my 12th year, but I'm treating you as if I'm just as excited as if it was my first day. And imagine you could go through life and you get to those complacent moments, where you might not be able to solve the problem or get through it, or sometimes you just have to put your head down and remember what it was like to be your first day and go solve that problem again.
Nice. Yes. Oh, man. Well said. We're running out of time, but I got this one question where it's like kind of sums it all up, the whole show. But obviously, I got many more questions. It's just such a small amount of time, even though it's an hour. But it's, anyways. And I want to thank you for your time. But have you ever heard of the infinite banking concept? And what's your impression about it?
Yeah, I love it. So I have heard of it very well. I apply it, and it if I could put it in a word, like I do a lot of things, especially when I read books, is I summarize them into words, and that word is leverage, right? And so if you understand a teeter-totter, right, it's a fulcrum point that helps you lift a lot with a little energy, right? And the infinite banking system, when applied and understood, it helps you leverage. It helps you apply more energy or less energy to apply more force to doing what you want to do. And so, I leverage my time, I leverage my money, I leverage everything I possibly can, because life is short. Even if you get to live to 100, you've got to enjoy the ride. And so if I can use tools or discover tools like infinite banking system to put into my life, I would want to investigate to make an informed decision. And I did that a long time ago. And so, yeah, I mean, IBS it's amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, we're coming to the end of the show, and thanks, Chris, for coming over and explaining a little bit of and helping us open the mindset door and giving us a little bit of directions of like, there's always a solution out there, people. Don't feel like you're alone either. Like a lot of people tend to be, we're so connected with the internet and everything that it's also a disconnection, right? But that's definitely another topic for another day. I want to thank everybody. Gaurav tried to get on, but it's a heavy resource stream, having 3 people, and we definitely didn't test it before the show. So it was unfortunate that it came on later, and a lot of things were getting choppy, but hopefully I'll try to manage to get a better internet myself, even though I'm in the modern world and Gaurav is over in India. Even there, I don't know what's going on there. But thanks again, Christopher, for joining us, Farmers in Finance. It was great to have you here. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I would like to invite you over for another show, if that's okay with you, in the near future. Are you up for it? Yeah, cool. Thank you again. Just got to end it here. Keep watching. Next week, we're probably going to finish up the sprouts and give them how to knowledge, how to tackle their debts, how to create solutions. That's what we want to run off this energy. And we're going to do our case scenario and introduce to you the infinite banking concept again, because this is a big one for me and the show. And thank you for listening. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the show if you're looking at it on YouTube. At any other days, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. Christopher, you're able to contact him on LinkedIn. He's on LinkedIn. He's one of my connections, so you can find him there. Anything else, just give us a shout. Any problems you have. Thank you for watching again. See you next time. Bye.